Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. I'm Ellis and today I'm back for the opposition view. I'm joined by Billy from Oak Road Hatter podcast. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing well, thank you. A little bit nervous coming into this game after what happened to us midweek and what happened to you midweek, but yeah, no, I'm excited.
1 week's a long time in football, isn't it? I'm sure you were a lot more confident a week ago, but of course, Luton back in the Premier League, but first time in the top flight since 1991-92, was it? So just before the Premier League actually came to exist, and you've had a lot of interesting times since, maybe I should say.
Yeah, very interesting times. I thought I was a bit of a curse growing up a Luton fan. I think as early as I remember, we went from the Championship down to the National League, and I just thought, what is going on with me supporting Luton? But fortunately enough, for all those downs, there have been as many ups. And yeah, fortunately, sit in a position now where in the Premier League talking about a game against Everton, which is exciting enough.
Definitely. Points deductions, promotions, you've had a lot, haven't you?
Yeah. I think it was minus 60 in 3 seasons, which didn't give us any chance. And then going into the conference thinking it'd be a breeze, it was anything but that. 5 seasons in the Myers, and yeah, escaping eventually. And yeah, we've gone on to some amazing things since then.
It's a fantastic story, isn't it? And now in the Premier League, you've not won just yet, but there's been some positive signs, hasn't there? What have you made of the start so far this season? Of course, you've played some really difficult games, haven't you? Played some really good sides, but of course you're still winless, and you'll be looking to get that first win on Saturday. But what do you make of the season so far?
Yeah, I'm going to scrap the midweek game against Exeter, but every game we've played so far this season, bar that Exeter one, has been a sign of progression, and I think that's leading up to a victory. I think we were quite unlucky against Wolves at the weekend, given the chances we created. The start we made against Wolves was electric, and actually the sending off after 37 minutes for Bellegarde sort of seemed to shift the game to a disadvantage, which is always weird to say, but Wolves dropped deep, and it made them very difficult to break down. But yeah, I think we're building up. We're starting to see relationships within the squad work. Down the left side, Alfie Doherty and Ogbene working very well together. They were brilliant against Wolves. Hopefully more of the same come Saturday. But I think that element of progression is the most fascinating part of the season so far, and hopefully we can build that into Saturday and get a first point on the road.
Well, that's what you want to see, isn't it? Above all, it's progression, isn't it? First time in the Premier League, and you want to make a real good account of yourselves. And of course, Rob Edwards being the manager, and I know that you guys absolutely love Rob Edwards. What is he like as a manager? Because we don't hear a lot about him in the media, and he's absolutely adored by Luton fans, isn't he?
Yeah, he is adored. He didn't change much when Nathan Jones left for the second time. He kept a lot of the processes the same, but added sort of his personal touches. He wanted us to be better on the ball. He wanted us to be a little bit more creative in around the final third, and during the Championship run-in, that's exactly what we saw. He gets the club, he gets the town, he gets everything to do with Luton. He's aligned with the board, and I just think he's the ideal person as well as the manager. I think as a person, he just really gets the Luton way. He understands the story. He understands how difficult it was for Luton fans to, endure what they've had to endure as fans, as we've mentioned before, the minus 60. And he's, thankful for the fans. He knows that Kenilworth Road can be a fortress, and I think that's the best thing about him. He's just so on board with the project, and I think it's quite an underrated feature of a manager. We can speak about his tactics, we can speak about his man management, but yeah, over and above all, it's him as a person getting Luton, which I think has taken us a long way in such a short space of time.
It's so important, isn't it, for the culture of the club, and to have a connection with the fan base is so important when you really need to all stick together in the Premier League season, don't you? Because it's probably about more like the sum of your parts rather than individual players, because of course you've got quite a small squad, and you didn't do loads of transfer business, and you've had a couple of injuries recently as well. Of course, Sambi Lokonga's now injured, isn't he? He's out for quite a while. And I heard that Lockyer was having a scan as well. So, of course, that's two big blows. And the squad was already quite small already. Does Rob Edwards have a bit of a difficult task managing such a tiny squad?
Yeah, I think we're going to start to see he's going to be tested more than he's been tested so far as Luton manager. The first, 3 or 4 games, it was just happy to be there. Then we played Fulham and really should have got a point. We should have really got 3 points against Wolves. And now there's an eagerness to get what we deserve. And I think that doesn't amount in pressure piling on Edwards to get points or anything, because we're as a fan base, we understand how much of a mammoth task this is, being in the Premier League and competing. But I think he's going to be tested more than he's been tested as Luton manager. Tactical decisions he makes. Lokonga being injured is quite big, because Edwards has alluded to making Luton better on the ball, and I think that's what we saw with Lokonga coming in, only in glimpses, of course, because he only played 1 game against Fulham and 60 minutes against Wolves, but you could tell that he was going to be a big part of what he was trying to build this season. So he's going to have to go back to the drawing board and really think about how to get the best of the current squad. There's a lot of player dilemmas. There's a lot of, player dilemmas. A lot of it will probably be answered for itself because of the injury, the growing injury list. But yeah, he'll have some decisions to make this coming Saturday, and it's not ideal for him at the moment. But ultimately, we have a squad that can compete, and I think Luton fans generally understand that.
So what's the aim then for this season? Is it simply just stay in the Premier League, or is it even that? Like, would you guys be okay to come back down and take the revenue from the Premier League and then build on that, or is the target to stay in the Premier League and that's that?
Yeah, I think going back to what we've done before as a club in the last sort of 10-15 years, we're an ambitious fan base because of what we've achieved. Being in the Championship, even last season, when we managed to win promotion, we had a bottom 6 budget. So we're used to working wonders on a shoestring budget. So I think in that sense, staying in the Premier League is the ambition, and Luton fans can be confident that we can at least compete for that. But if we do fall short, I'm sure there's going to be no real complaints. I don't think Edwards' job's ever going to be on the line, even if we struggle to win our first 15 games. He's earned himself this season, and he's an incredible manager for what he's done so far, and I think he's earned a lot of credit. So I think achieving survival will be the objective, but if we do fall short, it's okay.
So travelling to Goodison on Saturday, 3 p.m. kick-off. Goodison used to be quite a fortress, and in recent years a lot of teams have come and taken points from Everton. What do you think of the prospect of facing Everton, who were winless up to a point this season and have had quite a crazy week, really? We beat Brentford, we've just beaten Aston Villa last night, and suddenly things look very different. Has your opinion changed in the last week, and what do you make of playing Everton in general at this time?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because Goodison Park, as you've mentioned before, has been a fortress and a place where Everton could have relied on picking up points in survival bids in the past. But look, so far it's been a bit of a switch around. 0 points and 0 goals, I think it is. So been relying on the away form. But yeah, I think you can take a lot of confidence from, especially the performance against Brentford. I think that was, as well as a result, as well as much needed 3 points, that to put in that kind of display against the Brentford side, who are typically very, very resilient, has to be the main positive to take away from that. To follow that up with a 2-1 win, against Aston Villa. Yeah, you're in dreamland at the moment.
Oh, we're so happy. I can't actually believe it. I've been to both of those away games, and to see us win twice on the road in a week is just a dream, really. And it's fantastic for us. But we're now going back to Goodison, and we've got 2 massive home games now. We play you guys on Saturday. We've then got Bournemouth the following Saturday. 2 games that as an Everton fan, I'm looking at going, we need to pick up at least 4 points there and arguably 6, even because of the start that we've had. And I think that we'll be buoyed by the 2 performances. So perhaps the prospect of playing Everton looks a bit more of a worrying one for you guys than it did a week ago. But I don't want to get ahead of myself just yet, because we haven't yet seen a complete home performance that also brought goals. We've seen strong performances against Fulham and Wolves, but of course we didn't put the ball in the net, and that's the point of football, isn't it? So I'm hoping that now we've got that bit of confidence, we might be able to put the ball in the net against you guys. But looking at our players, I think the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin are going to be the ones who cause a real threat to you. Arnaut Danjuma might as well, and Dwight McNeil is a player who's completely underrated by the rest of the Premier League, and I think he'll be one that you really have to watch out for. But looking at it from a Luton fan, which Everton players are you looking at and being most worried about for this game?
Yeah, I think Calvert-Lewin scoring. I think did he score in both games, the recent games?
Yeah,
I think that will do his confidence a world of good. Powerful, strong, athletic, good on the ball. He's everything you want in a Premier League striker, and without Tom Lockyer potentially with him going for a scan, I think the prospect of Mads Andersen, who's still adapting to the Premier League, that could be a very difficult afternoon for him. The look of Beto as well, I think he provides a similar kind of service to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I think when you've got 2 beast and athletically gifted players like that, that's going to cause any team problems, especially when you've got the quality in wide areas. Jack Harrison, from all accounts, obviously didn't see the game yesterday, but it looked like from the social media reaction that Harrison had a good game. He's somebody that can get to the byline, he can cut in, he can do all sorts, very good manipulation of the ball. So yeah, you mentioned McNeil as well, the quality he possesses in wide areas. It's like any team in the Premier League. We're going to fear most players, but I think it's also about how we approach it, because I think we've also got quality in wide areas. We've also got 2 menacing strikers. I can see a fair few similarities, and the question I've been asking myself is how the game is going to play out from a tactical perspective. Who's going to see more of the ball? Who's going to defend that little bit deeper? And it's interesting because both teams have a similar-ish kind of style of play.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and we are going to have to take the initiative at home because the fans demand that, of course. Being at home, you've got to take the game to the other side, and without being disrespectful, Everton will be looking at that thinking they should be winning that game, and that could play into your favour because we haven't yet won a game this season where we have dominated the ball and been the home team, so to speak. Of course, in the away games, we had plenty of the ball and we were in it and we were fantastic on transition, but this will be a completely different game. It'll be a game where we might have a lot of the ball. You'll probably let us have the ball, I imagine, and your approach interests me. It'll be interesting to see. Of course, you've got Carlton Morris up front. I imagine you'll have Adebayo as well, I think.
Yeah, potential. We've sort of switched it the last couple of weeks where we've gone 3-4-3. So we've played a couple of wide players. We had Ogbene on the left and Jacob Brown on the right. So it'll be interesting. Without Lokonga, it might be pointing to the fact that Adebayo might come back in and we go for a 3-5-2. Yeah, it's the most difficult game week so far to predict how we'll go about it from a lineup perspective. But yeah, Adebayo and Morris, if they are up top, they will cause problems. They will cause problems, maybe not in front of goal, but they will certainly work their socks off and they'll win their duels.
And give us something to think about. That's obviously important when you're going away from home. And what is going to be the key to getting Luton a point or 3 at Goodison? What is the approach that you think will end up working? Because at Goodison, I think the key often is to obviously not concede in the first half an hour, don't get the crowd up. And as the game draws on, we've often been defeated in the last 10 minutes of games where it's been 0-0 for a while and then a team's nicked it. How do you guys see how you could cut through Everton and how you could beat us on Saturday?
I think I'll go back to the point I made before about the left-hand side. Alfie Doherty at left wing-back. He's adapted to Premier League football so well. He's such an exciting player, and to think we got him for maybe 500 grand as an injury prone player from Stoke. He's just reached heights that, probably Luton fans expected, but probably later on in his progression, he's still only 23. And I think now he's got over some of his injury issues. He's been able to flourish down that left side. And then Ogbene in front of him, he was absolutely superb against Wolves. He was up against Nelson Semedo, who,
strong defender.
Barcelona. Yeah, very a very good defender in from a physical point of view, but also a technical point of view as well. But Ogbene was just unbelievable against him. And up against Ashley Young, that will be a very good battle. Probably an even better battle because I think he picked you boys over us in the summer.
He did.
And he's got Watford connections as well. So that left hand side, Alfie Doherty and Ogbene pushing forward against Ashley Young, who he's known for his attacking output, but I think defensively he's been okay. He's been good enough, and obviously he's intelligent. He knows the game on the back of his palm. He is a good player, so that will be, I think, the most intriguing battle for me.
So the wide areas is where you're gonna catch us out. Then that does seem to make quite a bit of sense because Ashley Young is an intelligent player, he's experienced, but he's 38, isn't he? That's one thing we have to remember, and I imagine a lot of teams coming to Goodison will think that and perhaps target him for it. And it'll be interesting to see whether he plays actually, because Nathan Patterson was fantastic on Wednesday night against Aston Villa. Vitaly Mikolenko has been brilliant since he came in the last two games, and he was subbed off at half time last night, so perhaps that could be that he's coming in to start against Luton. So Ashley Young may or may not play, but either way I think the wide areas is going to be the point to target for us. And looking at you guys, I think we've just got to have urgency, we've got to have an intensity to our play, and now the goals are starting to come from us. I hope that it isn't one of those games where we rue some really terrible missed chances in the first half like we have in others, and the intensity just has to be there, because the thing is, you guys are going to come and you're going to battle, aren't you? And we have to match you for effort and hope that our quality can then prevail through that. And for me, I'm feeling pretty positive about it, but I'm worried about a certain man, and I think he might be injured, but I want you to tell me about him anyway. How's Ross Barkley been since he settled in?
Yeah, it's been an interesting case because obviously Luton, being the club that they are, didn't do too much business that raised the eyebrows of the wider Premier League. But I think when Ross Barkley came in, it did open those eyes. He's obviously not been at the levels that he was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but I think he did have a decent enough time at Nice over in France. He started, I think he played the Chelsea game and at home to West Ham, so the second and third games, and looked lively, a little bit off the pace, but I think it was encouraging displays. Created a few openings, but since then got an injury, wasn't involved at all on Saturday or Tuesday. I don't know if they didn't want to have him anywhere near Tuesday just because they want him fresh for Everton. Or it might just be another couple of weeks until we see him back in action. I think all the script writers will have Barkley to score if he's involved.
Oh, they will.
But whether he plays a part or not, I think we'll have to listen to Rob Edwards either today or tomorrow to confirm or deny.
That'll be very interesting regardless. Even if he's at Goodison, I'm sure there's a few fans who aren't pleased with him still. Of course, he left Everton a few years ago and he ended up leaving for a real cut price, and we probably could have got a lot more for him if he'd have gone 6 months earlier. So he's had such a tumultuous career, hasn't he, since leaving Everton? You thought at the time you got such a fantastic young talent, and it really has gone downhill for him. Chelsea, Aston Villa on loan, Nice, and now you guys. And for him, like, he'll be hoping that he can recapture some of the form he was at Everton, and he's at a point now where it's make or break, isn't it? It has to work in the Premier League this season, or who's going to really look at him anymore? You guys will probably let him go when his contract then ends, and where does he look for next? It's one of those, isn't it? He has to get it right at Luton.
100%, yeah. And, he seems very committed. I think just looking at his social media over the summer, he was working earlier than most to get himself fit for this season, and the interviews he's done seem positive. The first couple of glimpses we've got of him have been positive enough as well. He's a player that will create, and he's the kind of player you want making a late run in. I think he's got that sort of clutch to his game. He's somebody that can win you matches. It's unfortunate that he has picked up an injury this early on, but I think going on, progressing for the rest of the season, I think he's somebody that will be a point winner for us.
Yeah, he's definitely a real threat when he's on his game, and hopefully for us he's not playing, because that is absolutely the script, isn't it? If you guys win and Ross Barkley scores, like, people would have wrote that days and days before. Probably the minute he signed for you, that was probably written in the stars. But let's hope it doesn't happen for Evertonians listening. But I want you to make a prediction now, Billy. So what are you thinking for this game? Neck on the line, make your prediction. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I went quite out there on our Luton podcast the other day. I went for a 2-1 win, but I've got this. It's probably something negative, but the closer it comes to the game, I lose a lot of confidence. So I think that process has already started. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and probably by Friday evening it'll be 4-0 Everton. But yeah, I'll go for 1-1 as of being here right now. I'm going to go for the two marksmen. I'm going to go for Calvert-Lewin and Carlton Morris to be on the score sheet.
Interesting. I think it will be a game all about the strikers, because your lads are really going to test our defence just with the work rate, the power, the physicality that they've got. And I'm hoping that Dom or Beto, whoever that may be, maybe even both, could perhaps do that to you guys too. I think I'm going to go with 2-0 Everton. I think it's going to be a really difficult game, and people shouldn't just walk into this game and say Everton are going to turn Luton over. And just because we've won 2 games does not mean that we're suddenly the finished article and we're going for Europe and all that. Of course it's not. So I think I'll say 2-0, which I'd still say is positive, and it's one we absolutely have to win. So for me, if we don't win, there will be a lot of worries and a lot of questions, because this is the home game on paper that Everton need to go and get 3 points from. And then if we don't win, the pressure on the Bournemouth game would ramp up. But I'm feeling great about Everton at the minute, so I've got to put us to win, absolutely. And I'll go with Dominic Calvert-Lewin again, because he is on fire at the minute. And I think I'll go with Dwight McNeil, because he deserves a goal as a reward for his performances since he's come back. He's been absolutely brilliant since he come in. But it's going to be a good game regardless. But before you go, I've got one final question for you, okay? So we always ask a random question at the end of the opposition view. And I want to ask you, right, if you could sit down for a meal with 3 people, whether it's celebrities, footballers, anyone in general, you could sit down for a meal with, have a chat with them, find everything out that you wanted to know, who would it be and why?
Wow, that is a thinker. All right, I think I'd have to stick in the footballing world for the first one. Who would that be sticking in the footballing world? I'd go Mick Harford, being a legend of football, Luton Town Football Club, been our manager, been chief of recruitment, been a player that saved us. I think Mick Harford would have some incredible Luton-based stories. Then who else? This is a difficult one.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
It is a hard one. I'll throw the question back at you. I don't know if you've got 3 as well, all lined up.
Well, I've not actually been asked back yet since I've started asking these questions, so maybe I should prepare a bit more. But I think there's a few ex-Everton players, definitely. Tim Cahill, I'd love to speak to him. He was my hero when I was younger, and it would tend to be footballers for me, because like football's my life. And I think Duncan Ferguson's such a great guy as well, and I've met him before, and I'd just love to carry on chatting to him. And I imagine Howard Kendall too, because he is just Everton's greatest ever manager. He took us to the league title twice and the Cup Winners' Cup as well. And, I'd love to see Everton win a trophy. My dad's seen it all, and I would love to see it next. And if Howard Kendall could give us any insight on what the secret ingredient is to winning titles, then I'd love to pass it on to the players nowadays. But have you got a couple more for us?
Yeah. Ali McCoist, and I think that's a little
brilliant,
bit of a
interesting
one, but he makes me laugh. He's just listening to him on TalkSport. I know he's a little bit of a decisive figure, but I'm on the right side.
He's a good fella, isn't he? He's a good fella.
Yeah.
He's a good commentator as well, actually.
Very good commentator, yeah. And the stories he'd have, would be brilliant. And I think Lionel Messi as well, just to
Without a
to know
doubt.
how he does what he does, and then try and put in a good word for coming down to Luton for a season.
Get him down, yeah. He's in Inter Miami at the minute, isn't he? So get him there next season after Luton have stayed in the Premier League, hopefully. And I wish you all the best for the season. Of course, it's great to be back in the Premier League, but it'd be even better to stay, wouldn't it? And thanks so much for coming on today. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and best of luck for the season, bar this game and the one in, I want to say May.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and do go and check out Billy on the Oak Road Hatter podcast. Of course, Luton are going to have a load of exciting times this season. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, as there's going to be for us. And the game all comes to a head on Saturday at 3 p.m. and it's a massive one for us, massive one for Luton wanting to get their first win. We need our first home win, but fingers crossed we're talking about an Everton win in a week's time when we're chatting on all of our other shows. But please do leave a like on this one. Leave a comment. What are you thinking about this game? Are you worried about Ross Barkley? I am a little bit. But yeah, let us know what you think and make sure you subscribe to the Toffee Blues. But that's all for now. See you later.